Ashe, this is Rhythm Phoenix, aka Ab Benu. Government name Luke Frederick II. Coming to you again from the book The Shamanic Wisdom in the Pyramid Texts by Jeremy Naydler, published by Inner Traditions. And just skipping forward into the cusp of the book, basically the beginning of the middle of the book, has a section in here. The chapter is called The Pyramids as the Locus of Secret Rites, which means center. This section here is talking about the pyramid of Sekhem Ket, or Sekhem Ket. Okay. The next pyramid to be constructed after that of Zoser, though it was probably never completed, was that of Sekhem Ket. This was also a stepped pyramid and was at the center of a large complex on a similar scale to that of Zoser, and built very close to it at Saqqara. Sekhem Ket's pyramid is of special interest because when it was excavated in the early 1950s, it clearly had not been entered before. The doorway, that's very key, the doorway on the north side was still sealed, and huge limestone blocks barred the entrance to the inner chamber. Among the debris on the corridor floor were gold bracelets, gold beads, and a magic wand covered in a gold leaf. Of even greater significance were fragments of an alabaster dish inscribed with the words "n.e.d. Festival." Ayin Knum, or Ayin Knum, Ayin Knum. We know that Ayin Knum was a courtier of Zoser who must have also held office under Sekhem Ket. The presence here in the corridor of Sekhem Ket's pyramid of this courtier's alabaster dish commemorating his attendance at a Seth festival would seem to imply an association between the Seth festival and the pyramid. The door to the inner chamber of Sekhem Ket's pyramid was, like the main entrance door, still sealed. There were no, on top of it were plants. When the inner chamber was breached, an alabaster sarcophagus in the center of the chamber was found, but it was also sealed. On top of it were plants remains, but around it there were no burial artifacts. When the sarcophagus was finally opened, it was found to be completely empty. This is an example of a pyramid that was definitely not a tomb, and yet it contained a sarcophagus. The sarcophagus had evidently not been used for the burial of the dead king, but this does not mean that it had not been used at all. Now in chapter 3, reference was made to the possibility that a sarcophagus was used in the Seth festival secret rites. While it cannot be proved, of course, it is surely not unreasonable to suppose that the empty sarcophagus of Sekhem Ket, placed within a pyramid that was in the center of a complex designed on similar lines to Zoser's pyramid complex, could have been used in the secret rites of the said festival. And here's the section called the 7 provincial step pyramids. Step pyramids continued to be built into the early part of the 4th dynasty. There are 7 step pyramids that are attributed to either Huni, the last king of the 3rd dynasty, or Sneferu, or Seneferu, the first king of the 4th dynasty. Referred to as the 7 provincial pyramids, they are located in different provinces across Egypt, from Siala near the Fayoum in the north to Elephantine in the south. He shows this in figure 8. He shows in figure 4.8, page 96, the location of the 7 provincial pyramids, which were attributed to Huni and Sneferu. None of them is believed to have been built as a tomb, as they lack internal chambers. Okay. The interesting thing about these 7 provincial pyramids is that none of them has any entrances, internal corridors, or chambers. It has been suggested that these pyramids were representations of the primordial mound, but it is likely that they were also emblems of the king's power, set up near to his provincial palaces. Let's see what makes them into powers. They representing the primordial mound. They also represent the coronation dais. Okay, so he shows you the 7 nomes or cities where the 7 pyramids are. From south to north, we have Siala, Zawayat el Mietin, Sinki, Ombos, El Kula, Edfu, south, Elephantine. Okay. Now, I would get into something deep, but I don't know if I should. Here again, we have 7 pyramids. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Figure 4.9 is a map showing the positions of the pyramids at Siela, Miedum, and Dashur, attributed to Sneferu. They could not all have been his tombs. To Sneferu is attributed the pyramid at Miedum, as well as the bent pyramid at the red pyramid and the red pyramid at Dashur. Clearly not all of them could have been his tombs, of course, but for reasons unknown to us, the king kept changing his mind and sallied forth once again to construct yet another tomb for himself. Rather than go along with the vacillating king theory, Mark Lehner has argued that the Miedum pyramid was built as a cenotaph, not as a tomb. No remains were found in the sarcophagus, nor were any mummies' remains, and the chapel beside the pyramid was extremely small. Okay, now I am skipping to page 310, chapter 10, the recovery of ancient Egyptian mysticism. This section talks about visionary mysticism that the Egyptians carried within these pyramid texts on the walls of the Pyramid of Unas. That entails a range of experiences, often expressed in striking imagery, that the king undergoes in relation to the spirit world. This is visionary mysticism. Not to regard these experiences as authentically mystical would only result in a distorted assessment of the real significance of what is related in the pyramid texts. And we also know that all of this is going on before any religion, Christian, Buddhism, Muslim, Islam, Judaism. This is going on before all of that. Visionary mysticism, because when we go to Henry Corvin's books dealing with Sufi mysticism, then we may make a connection that from the Sufis, which represents the woolly-haired people of that area, Arabia. Sufis are more than likely ancient Kemites who were stationed in ancient Arabia, which was a nome in ancient Egyptian or Kemite times, or Tamare times. He says, what the texts describe are direct encounters with a spiritual dimension of existence. This is the key. This is the whole key about why I'm doing what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Everything, all the research and study that I'm doing about the afterlife and about occultism and the hidden realities, multidimensional realities, quantum physics, cosmogenesis, just, the psycho-spiritual centers known as the chakras, the awakening of the extrasensory perception, or the extrasensory in the human being, making the human being an extraterrestrial being, extraterrestrial, and this is the representation of what they mean in the movies and shit when they say the aliens are coming and shit. The aliens are none other than you know what I'm saying, the Ain Kanum, the alien, the Al-In, the El-in, which means God of light. El-Ain, El-Ain. Or the God of nothingness, or the God of it all. It's God of light and the God of non-being. What it is this. El-in means God of non-being and being. Or Netcher of non-being and being. This is Nebercher and Mehert, okay? Masculine and feminine aspect of God, he, she, which is where Atum begins his being, okay? This is page 311. I'm trying to read what I have in parentheses and what I have highlighted. What is distinctive about shamanism, when viewed as a type of mysticism, is that it involves the living encounter with the spirit world that occurs in a state of consciousness in which the shaman temporarily crosses the threshold of death. This is what I believe in Hebrew is, okay? This is what I believe in Hebrew. This is my experience. This is coming from my experience. It's one, and it deals with the dream world, okay? Now, one might brush this off as it was just a dream, or dreams. I've had a couple of these dreams of deceased relatives visiting me, but one in particular, my brother, was extremely powerful, and it happened twice in different sections. One was in a world that I believe was his world, and another one was in reminiscent of this 3D world, because we was at somebody's house in a particular place. But in the first dream, it was in what I call Jeremy Star world. You know what I'm saying? And so my search began and has continued and will continue on. And I never really seek to get solidified answers from every question I have, but the search is just a beautiful journey within itself. So, it is experiences at this threshold of death that constitute both the mystical core of shamanism and the mystical content of the pyramid texts. Okay. In this respect, then, it is in this respect, then, that these texts are first and foremost to be understood as mystical texts, not funerary, which has been argued. Indeed, there is no problem in accepting that one of these contexts was funerary, for the simple reason that the type of mysticism that existed in ancient Egypt involved crossing the threshold of death while still alive. It would be entirely appropriate that mystical texts concerned with traveling into the realm of the dead while still alive should be employed for funerary purposes, but the texts themselves are clearly describing experiences of the living, not of the dead. That is why they are mystical. Okay, I'm going to pause on page 312 and come back to it. It's a section dealing with the death and rebirth. This is in the chapter, The Recovery of Ancient Egyptian Mysticism. This whole section here from 312 on, dealing with the pyramid texts, are so powerful and amazing that I would rather just go ahead and read them all, you know what I'm saying, together, until the section where it says the phenomenological approach to ancient Egyptian religion. So it's very, very powerful. Real quick, in this section, page 320, I will say this, quoted: the point of his journey, the king or the pharaoh, into the spirit world was to become a master of both spheres of reality. Okay, and then it says, the king unites in himself the above and the below, and brings into manifestation a new divine human axis, a channel for the energies of the spirit world to flow into the terrestrial world. He is the one who went and came back, who makes the link between worlds. And the consequence of his having made this link is that he becomes the mediator of the fertilizing powers that flow into the terrestrial sphere, into the land of Egypt from the spirit world. He channels the vitalizing energies of the spirit world into the realm of the living. In so doing, he establishes Ma'at, or cosmic harmony, on earth, one of the most important functions of kingship, which is said in Utterances 3:17 through 3:19. The goal of the spiritual journey described in the pyramid texts is therefore not simply the king's enlightenment or absorption in the Godhead. It is for him to seal the connection between worlds, to unite the realms of heaven and earth for the benefit of all of Egypt, which is upper body, lower body, and thereby to establish Ma'at, universal harmony and order throughout the kingdom. Okay, and like I said, we're going to come back and we're going to begin with the section known as death and rebirth. Okay, it says that the death then is a voluntary death, as in the movie Flatliners. Okay, movie Flatliners with Julia Roberts, and your boy, what is his name? He played in 24 Hours. I forgot his name. A death experience undergone while still alive, rather than a literal physical death. We have seen in chapter 7 that such journeys by the living into the realm of the dead are widely attested to, both in the literature of shamanism and in Orphic, Platonic, Neoplatonic, and Hermetic mystical writings. Indeed, it is such a pervasive theme in initiatory literature that we would be blind not to see that an initiatory interpretation of Unas's departing alive is just as viable as that of the standard funerary interpretation. Okay. Then he says in one part, page 313, the sun folk call out to him as he flies towards realms of spiritual light. But before he can join Ra in his sun boat, he is required to heal and reconcile the opposing forces of Horus and Seth. That is, he is required to bring into harmony the opposites of creativity and destruction, of order, Horus, and the wild, primal, but ultimately unproductive energies of Seth, who was more than likely in resignation to Sut Anub, or Anubis and Set combined, who was the baptizer in the River Jordan, man of the wild. Okay, part of the Panther clan, or the Panther priest. That's why he had the fur clothes on. Okay, I'm gonna pause right there. I'm gonna come back with some more fire, man. Pyramid of Unas, very important information here. All right, this is William Phoenix, aka Ab M. Banu.